welcome back to my channel. So today I am so excited, as I've hinted on some of my videos coming before this, I'm going to be doing another installment of my haunted tourism series. This one not quite as in-depth, more of like a guidebook for y'all. I did a few of the haunted things that you can do in Chicago, but nowhere near all of them. And because I have friends up there, I am hopefully planning on going back soon, seeing them again, and maybe doing some more spooky things. So my boyfriend and I went up, I guess it'll be 2 weeks now from when this video is going up. I'm like pre-filming because I'm going to be in Scotland and England and Ireland for the first half of June. So this will probably go up as I'm in another like kind of spooky and haunted location. And don't worry, I will be doing at least 2 videos on the haunted tourism in Europe. I'm thinking I'm going to do one on Scotland and then one on England. Dublin probably won't really do anything there because I'm really just going to be in Dublin to go to a wedding. It's kind of like an intermediary and I won't be able to do too many spooky things. But if I can, I will definitely talk about that as well. Anyway, so Chicago is one of the most haunted cities in America. It's really interesting. It's a very weird layout. It's kind of all over the place. Like, it's very large. And I live in New York where everything's kind of crammed on top of each other. Everything in Chicago is like fully spaced out. And I guess the first time I went to Chicago, I didn't really realize that because we stayed primarily in like the Logan Square, and Wicker Park area because that's where my friends lived. So yeah, so it was really interesting to go to all these like really interesting and cool places, primarily Graceland Cemetery, and I'll get to that in a little bit because that was the #1 thing I wanted to do when we were in Chicago. But the very first thing I have to say, like the #1 thing that I wanted to do before I realized Graceland Cemetery was a thing is just like see Cabrini Green. Which isn't really haunted at all, but if you've seen the 1992 film Candyman and then I think it was 2021 sequel to Candyman that Jordan Peele helped write, that all takes place in Cabrini Green. It's all about the gentrification of that neighborhood. And we did drive through Cabrini Green, but I will say, and I'm so mad I wasn't able to get a photo of it, but we were literally in an Uber as I saw it. In the 2021 Candyman, there's like a scene where they're in this like old abandoned church, and we drove right past it, and as we were driving past it, I looked at my boyfriend and I was like, oh my god, that's the Candyman church. Like, it looked just like it did in the movie. I'll see if I can get a photo from them of the church here so y'all can see, and it was right there. We drove right past it right as we were in like the heart of Cabrini Green, and it was so cool, and I just had such a like horror girl fangirl moment, and that was awesome. But yeah, so when I was there, I wanted to do a lot of haunted things. Again, this is also a book channel, so I really wanted to check out some bookstores as well. I went to Myopic Books, which is super famous. Here are some photos. I was not supposed to take photos in there, but I had to. And their horror section was really small. They had sort of a large mystery section, but their horror section was really small, as was their true crime section. And it's a really cool, old school used bookstore in Wicker Park. And I know it's really famous, and I'd actually been there before, but I wasn't enthralled with it. So then I hopped in an Uber and I went to City Lit, and they had a much nicer true crime section, but they also had a Chicago section. And in the Chicago section, I found this, which is Haunts of the White City by Ursula Bielski with a foreword by Jeff Mudgett. I know I recently spoke about this book on my channel. Again, Jeff Mudgett is the descendant of H.H. Holmes, the serial killer, murderer, whatever you want to call him. I know a lot of people don't believe he's a serial killer. But I thought I would pick this up and read about some of the things that were super haunted. And I kind of almost like immediately realized that I didn't get to do all of like the super spooky haunted things that were in Chicago, and I'm kind of bummed about it. Especially because this book talks quite heavily about the Congress Plaza, which is the most haunted hotel in Chicago, and I really wanted to stay there when we were booking hotels. But I went with my boyfriend on a work trip and he needed to stay by his office, so we weren't able to stay at the Congress Plaza. And it's famous because I believe like Al Capone haunts it, and there's an entire chapter of all of the ghosts that haunt it, and like which rooms are haunted and which ballrooms are haunted, and like all of this crazy stuff. But I'm gonna read this passage to y'all real quickly because I did not know this, and I swear if I had known this before I went to Chicago, I would have booked this hotel. So it says, Rumors have long flown that it was a room here at the Congress Plaza that partly inspired writer Stephen King to create his short story 1408, a gripping tale of a professional and skeptical ghost hunter who meets his match in a mysterious hotel room, 1408, said to be too haunted to lease. Unbelieving, the young man convinces the hotel managers to let him have the room for a night, though the previous tenants all took their own lives during their stays in it. The real-life 1408 was always believed to exist on the Congress' most haunted floor, the 12th floor of the older North Tower. Some point to a room that is padlocked and say that's the one. Others say it's the one that's been boarded up. Still others claim you can't even place it anymore. It's been papered over to remove any sign that it was ever there. This room does in fact remain, but it is not on the 12th floor. If it still had a number, the room would be, believe it or not, number 666. At some point in time, the spot where this door should be was drywalled over, a piece of baseboard patched in to connect the wood where the doorway once stood. The lintel above the old doorway is, indeed, still quite visible. Some had ventured that this room was simply put out of use because of its stigmatized number, but there is definitely more to the story. Though no staff member claims to remember why this room was sealed off forever, window washers tell us it was closed up with furniture still inside, almost as if even the objects in the room were believed to be cursed. And I didn't get to stay here. But I am telling y'all this as a travel guide that if you guys really want to go to a haunted hotel, check out the Congress Plaza. This book has a huge chapter on haunted hotels that primarily does focus on the Congress Plaza. And there are so many haunted goings on in that hotel that next time I go to Chicago, we are staying there. I believe it is right on the water. It looks really, really cool. But instead we stayed at the Emily Hotel, which I really, really enjoyed. It has this super spooky blue hallway, which I was like, I love this vibe. But from all accounts, that hotel was not haunted, nowhere near like the Congress Plaza. The other thing that I really didn't get to do when I was there, that I am a little bummed about, was anything H.H. Holmesy. I tried to book a night tour, but it just didn't fit into our schedule, unfortunately, and as much as I really wanted to go and check out where the murder castle was, I just didn't have time to spare to go to just see a post office that I couldn't even really go in. Like the one thing that I've heard about the post office is that it does in the basement share a wall, which was once a foundational wall for the murder castle, which is really, really cool. But other than that, it's literally just a post office, and the murder castle happened to be in like the parking lot next to it. Well, at least like the land that was once there. But it did get me super, super interested in H.H. Holmes. Again, there's a lot of stuff on H.H. Holmes in this book as well. And because I am on my nonfiction kick, I did buy H.H. Holmes, The True Story of the White City Devil by Adam Seltzer. Okay, so I'm sure you're like, well, what spooky things did you do? I did two. I did two spooky things. One which was unexpectedly spooky and one which was intentionally spooky. And that was the, I went to the Art Institute of Chicago, which is one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen. It reminded me quite a lot of the Met here in New York, and wandered around pretty much every single section of that hotel, or of that museum. There's a really cool like miniature room down in the basement, which just recreates what like houses in like the 1800s, 1700s, like early 1900s would look like all across like America, England, France. It was amazing. And then of course there was a bunch of like really famous paintings there, like the Georges Seurat Sunday on Le Grand Jatte, I think is what it's called. American Gothic is there, Nighthawk is there. But as I was going to see Nighthawk and American Gothic, because they're kind of in the same gallery, I stumbled across this insane painting of Dorian Gray, which apparently was the movie poster for I think a 1950s film. And I do not remember the artist off the top of my head. I will link it down below. But can we talk about how this is the most terrifying painting I have ever seen? And it was in an American art gallery, like next to American Gothic and Nighthawk, and we don't talk about this. This is terrifying. And it was one of the most perplexing things I had seen. It was so cool because so many people were stopping to look at this painting as we were there, and everybody seemed fully taken off guard. Like nobody was in the museum to see that painting, but everybody was fully captivated by it. And I thought that was absolutely incredible. There were some other really cool paintings. This is At the Moulin Rouge by Henri Toulouse-Lautrec. I took art history quite a lot in high school and college, and this was always one of my most perplexing paintings. I did not expect to see this here, but I really, really loved it. I'm a bartender, and I always thought this was interesting because this is a snapshot of the Moulin Rouge, which was like a big fancy club. And this woman's face, which is very, very green, as you can see, has always kind of been the centerpiece of this painting and kind of like the controversial part of it. It was actually removed at one point because they didn't think that it was selling because of her face. This is a real person, I forget who, I believe she's a singer. And then it was and then later reattached. But the reason her face is green is because of absinthe and like the absinthe craze that took place over the Moulin Rouge. And I always thought that was such a cool little like nod to kind of the like underside of nightlife. Like, yeah, there's all this glitz and glamour, but then there's also these people who are, you know, like drinking a lot of absinthe to like see things, and just it was such a weird thing to include in the painting, and it's always been kind of disturbing to look at, but I've always really loved it. So I was really stoked to see that. I didn't expect to see it, and I thought it was really, really fun. And then finally, the last thing that I was able to do when I was in Chicago was go to Graceland Cemetery, and the vast majority of this video will now be talking about Graceland Cemetery. But I have a book called 199 Cemeteries to See Before You Die, and I use it as kind of a travel guide book all the time to go places. And Graceland Cemetery, there's a lot of cemeteries in Chicago. This was the one that was in the book, so we went. And the primary reason that we went was to see this extremely famous painting, or to see this extremely famous grave called Eternal Silence. So I'll post Eternal Silence up here. It is supposed to be one of the most difficult tombstones to photograph, and as you can see from these images, it was not easy to photograph. In fact, I wasn't able to get myself, I wasn't on my own able to get a photo of Eternal Silence by itself. The sun glares kept messing it up. My boyfriend was able to get a photo of me with Eternal Silence that's on my Instagram. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. It's beautiful. It is huge. It is monumental. It is towards the front of the cemetery, so it is one of the first things you see. And this is the gravestone of Dexter Graves. Not a lot is known about it. There's a lot of really interesting superstitions about it. Apparently, if you look into the eyes of this Grim Reaper, it will tell you how you are going to die. Again, very difficult to take photos of. I looked into its eyes before I even knew this legend, and I didn't experience anything, but it is a really, really beautiful, stunning statue. And it was so nice to see it in a cemetery that had so many other like beautiful moments of architecture. There were a lot of like veiled obelisks, which I've never really seen in a cemetery before, some insane mausoleums, some beautiful like Celtic crosses. And then there was this like amazing man-made lake. There were like church cathedrals as tombstones, like cathedral windows as tombstones. These just insane like pyramids and sphinxes and just all these incredible sculptures. And just like, it was absolutely breathtaking. The man-made lake I thought was absolutely the coolest thing. There was like kind of like a centerpiece mausoleum done in almost like a Parthenon style that we went and saw from across the lake, and then we're able to walk through. There was a couple of those kind of like Grecian column style things over there. And there was also an island on the lake, which we went and saw. I don't think I took any photos of it just because they were kind of like rocks. Like instead of tombstones, they were like rocks with engravings on them. But I found out later through this Haunting of the White City book that it was actually the family plot of Daniel Burnham, who is the architect who designed the White City for the Chicago World's Fair that Devil in the White City by Eric Larson focuses on. And it's all about Daniel Burnham parallel to H.H. Holmes, and how one was this architect making this grand city, and then one was a serial killer making this like murder castle. So that's really interesting, but I didn't realize it when I was there, and then I realized after that I'd been at his gravesite, and it was really interesting because he was such like a grand architect, and yet his tomb, his resting place, were just rocks on this like amazing man-made island with a little footbridge, and it was absolutely stunning and really, really simple but beautiful and like one with nature. But I thought that was very, very, very interesting to see. There was also this insane tombstone, and from far away I actually thought it was a tree, and as you got close you realized it was actually made of stone, but it looked just like like a tree trunk of like a tree that had lost most of its branches. That was beautiful. I will have a photo of that there. There was this one stone that was completely covered in like ivy, and it looked like it was intentionally done, not like it was left in disarray, which I thought was really, really beautiful as well. But I completely understand why it's considered one of the world's most beautiful cemeteries. From like a landscape wise, I feel like the man-made lake is what makes it like truly beautiful from that perspective, but a lot of it is just the absolute artistic nature of a lot of the tombstones that are there. It was a very calm and peaceful resting place, and I really, really adored being there, and I highly, highly, highly recommend if you go to Chicago, you go and check it out. Eternal Silence is absolutely breathtaking, and I see why so many people go to visit there all the time. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys on my little Haunted Chicago guide. I know this is not as spooky focused as a lot of my other haunted tourism videos have been, but I did want to actually shed light on some of the really cool things that are there. And even though I might not have done everything, you guys absolutely should if you guys get the chance and want to do some more haunted tourism. Anyway, that's all that I have for you guys today. As always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays. And if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you all in the next one. Wow.